Ladies and gentlemen, why do men fear a woman like you? This question isn't as simple as it might appear on the surface. The answer lies in the complexity of the human psyche, the historical dynamics of gender, and the very structure of identity itself. It isn't you specifically that they fear, it's the force you represent. You embody a challenge to their sense of self, and for many, that is a daunting prospect. Let us start with the psychological complexity of power dynamics. Men, for millennia, have been conditioned to hold a position of power, to be the protector, the provider, and the authority. When a woman steps into a space of equal or greater power, it challenges everything they've been taught to believe about themselves. It's not just a challenge to their social roles, it's an existential threat. A threat to their comfort, their self-worth, and their very identity. This is where the archetypes come in. The feminine has always been a profound force in the collective unconscious of humanity. On one hand, she is the mother, the nurturing force of creation. On the other, she is the seductress, the mysterious figure who calls forth both awe and fear. Men are drawn to these archetypes, but when they encounter a woman who fully embodies them, who possesses that strength, that grace, that depth, they find themselves confronting a part of themselves they may not understand and certainly don't control. Then there's the deep-seated fear of the masculine identity being upended. Historically, the masculine was defined by dominance, by action, by the ability to conquer and protect. When a woman shows herself to be just as capable, just as competent, or perhaps even more so, it forces men to question their very sense of self. Are they still masculine, or is their value tied to something much more fragile, much more dependent on social expectations? For many, this is not an easy confrontation. Power dynamics between men and women have been a central focus of human societies for millennia, and they continue to shape our interactions in profound ways. But the psychological complexity of these dynamics, particularly in how men perceive women who challenge traditional gender roles, is far deeper than mere social convention or surface-level behavior. When a man encounters a woman who holds power, intelligence, or independence, there is a deeply embedded psychological response that stems from centuries of societal norms, historical expectations, and unconscious fears. This intricate web of dynamics leads to a specific kind of tension, one that at its core has little to do with the woman herself, but everything to do with how men have come to define their identities and navigate their place in the world. At the most fundamental level, men have been historically conditioned to assume roles of dominance in many facets of life, in the workplace, in leadership, in relationships, and in societal hierarchies. This was not merely a matter of social convenience, it became a psychological imprint. The expectation that men should possess qualities like strength, control, and assertiveness was woven into the very fabric of their identities. From childhood, boys are taught to be strong, to be unflinching in their resolve, and to avoid vulnerability. They are told that power is something to be pursued, maintained, and wielded. This is not just about external success, it is about the internal confirmation of self-worth. Power, in this sense, becomes a cornerstone of masculine identity, something to be achieved and protected at all costs. When a woman steps into a space that traditionally belongs to men, she inevitably disrupts this established order. This could be in the form of professional achievement, intellectual capacity, or personal autonomy. The woman who is self-sufficient, capable, and confident poses an existential challenge to a man's sense of who he is. He is not just faced with the external reality of a powerful woman, he is confronted with an internal crisis. This crisis can take several forms, but at its core, it forces him to reevaluate everything he thought he knew about his place in the world. For some, this confrontation is too uncomfortable to endure. It evokes a sense of inadequacy that is difficult to reconcile, as the traditional markers of male power, strength, independence, and control are suddenly no longer singularly theirs to command. This discomfort is amplified by the psychological principle of social comparison. Men naturally compare themselves to others as a way of measuring success and value. This comparison often runs on a scale of dominance: who is stronger, more successful, or more influential. When faced with a woman who not only matches but surpasses him in certain areas, the comparison can feel like a direct challenge to his self-image. He may begin to question whether he is enough, whether his strengths, abilities, and achievements are truly valuable, or whether they have been built on an increasingly outdated model of masculinity. The woman's competence becomes a mirror that reflects his vulnerabilities, and this reflection is often difficult to face. In addition to the challenge of comparison, power dynamics are deeply entwined with fear of vulnerability. Vulnerability is something many men have been conditioned to avoid at all costs. The very idea of admitting vulnerability or showing it undermines their traditionally accepted role as providers and protectors. In the face of a powerful woman, however, this avoidance is increasingly difficult. Her presence often calls upon the deeper unconscious aspects of male psychology, where fears of inadequacy, dependency, and emotional exposure come to the forefront. Vulnerability becomes a key factor in this fear because power for men has traditionally been tied to control and emotional stoicism. To allow oneself to be vulnerable, particularly in the presence of someone who is perceived as strong and capable, is often viewed as a threat to masculinity itself. Thus, when confronted with a woman who embodies qualities they may aspire to but have not been trained to integrate into their own identities, men are faced with an uncomfortable paradox. To remain strong, they must suppress these parts of themselves that she awakens. This psychological tension is further exacerbated by the fear of emasculation. The traditional notion of masculinity has, for much of human history, been deeply connected to one's ability to exert dominance over others, whether it's through physical prowess, leadership, or the ability to protect and provide. Masculinity has been constructed around the ability to impose one's will on the world. A woman who challenges these expectations doesn't just disrupt the social order, she threatens to unravel the very fabric of masculine identity. When a man encounters such a woman, the subtle underlying fear of emasculation arises. If she is powerful, independent, and self-sufficient, what does that mean for his own worth and value? The very concept of being emasculated arises from this perception that masculinity is a fixed commodity that can be diminished or taken away. The notion of a woman's power, therefore, becomes a symbol not only of societal change but of a profound personal threat. Moreover, the role of competition plays a crucial part in the psychological dynamics between men and women. Competition is a fundamental part of masculine identity, and it's often how men prove themselves to the world. In the workplace, in social circles, and in relationships, men measure their worth by their ability to outperform others. When a woman competes in these arenas and does so successfully, it forces men to question the very terms of that competition. What does it mean to compete against a woman? For many, this becomes an unsettling question. Historically, the battlefield of competition was divided along gender lines, and men understood themselves as the dominant players. But when a woman enters that arena and holds her ground, it forces men to rethink not just the terms of competition, but their very definition of success. This shift can be uncomfortable, destabilizing, and ultimately a source of fear. At the heart of this psychological complexity lies the notion of identity disruption. A woman who challenges the traditional power dynamics is, in many ways, asking men to rethink who they are and how they interact with the world. This is not just about reconfiguring societal norms or adjusting to new expectations. It is a challenge to the core of masculine identity itself. It's a disruption of something far more deeply ingrained than outward behavior or social roles. It is a psychological challenge that asks men to face uncomfortable truths about their fears, vulnerabilities, and self-worth. Carl Jung's concept of the collective unconscious remains one of the most profound contributions to the understanding of human psychology. He proposed that beneath the surface of individual consciousness lies a deeper layer of unconscious material shared by all people, an inherited body of experience and symbolic imagery that transcends time, culture, and geography. Within this collective unconscious reside various archetypes, universal patterns of thought, behavior, and emotion that shape how individuals interact with the world and understand their place within it. One of the most powerful and significant of these archetypes is the feminine, a force that represents the full range of qualities associated with womanhood, both in the individual and in the collective imagination. The feminine archetype is not merely a reflection of women themselves, but an elemental and deeply ingrained pattern that resides within every human being, regardless of gender. Its presence in the unconscious provides a blueprint for how we understand, integrate, and relate to the feminine aspects of existence, whether they manifest in real women, in symbolic representations, or within our own inner lives. The feminine archetype encompasses many faces, and it can evoke both admiration and fear, often in equal measure. It is a complex and multifaceted construct that has shaped and influenced human behavior throughout history and continues to exert a powerful influence on modern society. To begin exploring the feminine archetype, it is necessary to recognize that it is not a singular, monolithic figure. Instead, it encompasses a range of distinct but interconnected images and symbols that represent various aspects of the feminine experience. Among these are the archetypes of the mother, the maiden, the crone, and the temptress, all of which embody different expressions of feminine power, wisdom, and mystery. First, the mother archetype holds one of the most enduring and powerful positions in the collective unconscious. She represents nurturance, creativity, and the life-giving force. Throughout history, the mother has been revered as the source of life and the keeper of the family unit. This archetype is tied to both the physical and symbolic act of creation. In this sense, the mother archetype embodies the force of life itself, bringing forth children, nurturing their growth, and ensuring their survival. She is the protector, the caregiver, and the sustainer. However, as much as the mother archetype is associated with warmth and unconditional love, it also holds the potential for devouring and smothering, as the shadow side of the maternal force can manifest in overprotection or possessiveness. This complexity makes the mother figure both awe-inspiring and at times terrifying. Next, the maiden archetype represents the youthful, untamed, and innocent aspects of the feminine. The maiden is associated with virginity, purity, and the potential for transformation. She is often seen as a figure on the cusp of womanhood, embodying unfulfilled potential and the capacity for growth. In mythology and storytelling, the maiden often symbolizes new beginnings and the promise of an unfolding future. She can be both the object of desire and a figure of independence, a representation of freedom and possibility. Yet the maiden is not always a passive figure. In many stories, she holds her own power and plays an active role in her own transformation. The maiden's archetype calls men to confront their desires and their relationships to femininity, not just as something to be possessed, but as a symbol of transformation, renewal, and personal growth. The crone archetype, on the other hand, represents the wisdom that comes with age and experience. The crone is the embodiment of intuition, knowledge, and mystical understanding. She is the wise woman who has lived through the seasons of life and who holds the truths of the world in her deep knowing. The crone is often depicted as a powerful figure, a woman who possesses knowledge that is both practical and esoteric, and whose power comes from her ability to see beyond surface appearances. In her, there is a sense of authority, independence, and self-sufficiency. Yet, the crone also embodies the shadow side of the feminine, representing the fear of aging, the inevitable decline of physical beauty, and the perceived loss of relevance that can come with the later stages of life. The crone archetype forces individuals to confront both the wisdom and the fragility of human existence. The temptress or seductress is another vital expression of the feminine archetype. She represents the allure of the unknown, the mystical, and the magnetic pull of desire. The temptress archetype is often associated with sexuality, mystery, and power, a power that can captivate and seduce those around her. She embodies the forces of attraction and repulsion, as her ability to draw others into her sphere often comes with a sense of danger. The temptress represents both the creative and destructive potential of feminine energy. She can inspire both love and fear, representing the unknown territories that men must navigate in their relationships with women. She is a reminder that the feminine cannot be fully understood or tamed, as it constantly pushes the boundaries of control and rationality. While these archetypes each hold distinct qualities, they are also deeply intertwined, representing the complexity and multifaceted nature of the feminine. The feminine archetype does not fit neatly into any one category. Instead, it encompasses a range of expressions and energies that are both nurturing and destructive, pure and wild, wise and dangerous. Men, in their psychological journey, are often forced to confront these different facets of the feminine, sometimes consciously, sometimes unconsciously. The encounter with a woman who embodies these archetypes can be profoundly disorienting, as it requires men to wrestle with their own relationship to power, vulnerability, desire, and identity. The feminine archetype, at its core, represents a force of transformation, one that forces individuals to confront parts of themselves that are often hidden or repressed. In the same way that men have historically been shaped by the archetype of masculinity, they are equally influenced by the feminine. The unconscious fear or attraction to this archetype stems from its capacity to awaken both the best and worst qualities within men. For some, this awakening is welcomed as an opportunity for growth and renewal. For others, it becomes a source of fear and resistance. Regardless of the response, the feminine archetype remains a powerful force capable of shifting the very foundations of identity and societal order. The concept of masculinity has long been defined by a specific set of roles, behaviors, and expectations, ideas that are rooted not only in social convention, but in deep-seated psychological and cultural structures. Throughout history, men have been conditioned to embody traits such as strength, dominance, stoicism, and independence. These characteristics have shaped not only the social roles men occupy, but also their understanding of themselves. Masculinity, for many, has been an identity defined by doing, whether that is in terms of achievement, physical prowess, or the ability to protect and provide. It is an identity formed by the ability to exert power and control over one's environment and circumstances. When this framework is challenged, when the boundaries of what is considered masculine are pushed, the very core of the masculine identity is threatened. The fear that arises in the face of this challenge is not simply an intellectual or emotional response, it is a visceral reaction that touches on deeply embedded notions of self-worth, social role, and existential purpose. Masculine identity, as it has been historically constructed, is largely externalized, centered on measurable achievements and visible markers of success. For generations, men have derived much of their sense of value from their ability to provide for others, to lead, and to dominate physical or social spaces. Men were taught that their worth came from action, from competing in the public sphere, and from making tangible contributions to society. When men were called upon to step into traditional masculine roles, whether in the workplace, the family, or society at large, the idea was clear: to be a man was to prove oneself capable and competent. This notion provided structure and meaning, giving men a sense of purpose. But the foundation of this identity has been increasingly questioned in recent years, particularly as societal norms evolve and the boundaries of gender roles become more fluid. The shift in societal expectations, particularly with the rise of gender equality and the expanding scope of what is considered acceptable behavior for both men and women, has created a profound sense of uncertainty among many men. Women have increasingly entered spaces that were once dominated by men, from the boardroom to politics, from scientific discovery to athletic competition. As women begin to surpass men in areas traditionally considered masculine, it forces many men to face the very real threat of obsolescence. The question then becomes not just about their roles in society, but about their very place in the social hierarchy. At the heart of this challenge is the fear that masculinity is no longer necessary. If women can perform the same roles as men, if they can attain the same levels of success, power, and independence, what does this mean for the future of masculinity itself? The deep-seated fear here is not just of competition, it is the fear of displacement, of becoming irrelevant. The identity of many men has been so intricately woven into their roles as providers and protectors that when these roles are no longer as strictly defined, they are left with an unsettling void. The fear of emasculation, of being stripped of what they have been taught to believe is the essence of their identity, becomes overwhelming. This fear is not merely about losing power, it is about losing meaning in life. The masculine identity is also threatened by the challenge to its foundational values of stoicism and self-reliance. The ideal man has long been expected to withstand adversity without showing weakness, to carry the weight of the world on his shoulders without asking for help or displaying emotion. This has led to the widespread suppression of emotional expression among men and the reinforcement of the idea that vulnerability is inherently feminine and thus undesirable. However, in recent years, there has been growing recognition that emotional expression, vulnerability, and empathy are not signs of weakness, but essential aspects of human experience. As this new understanding of masculinity gains ground, it directly challenges the traditional view that emotional control and detachment are the ultimate markers of manhood. In confronting this new model of masculinity, many men feel both confused and alienated. To express emotion or seek help is seen in traditional terms as abandoning the very qualities that have long been associated with being a man. The risk, then, is not just that these emotional capacities might compromise men's external success or competitiveness, it is the fear that they might erode their sense of self. The fear of being weak, of being less than a man, is deeply rooted in the traditional construction of masculinity. As men are asked to embrace emotional vulnerability, to recognize their need for connection and support, they are also forced to confront a paradox: the very traits that have long defined their worth are now being questioned. The traditional masculine identity is also grounded in competition, in the constant drive to outperform others and to prove one's superiority. This need for validation through achievement and external recognition is deeply embedded in male psychology. Yet, as societal expectations shift, the very structure of this competition is changing. In the modern world, where collaboration is often valued over competition, men are left struggling to understand their place. If success is no longer solely defined by the ability to outperform others, then how should men define their value? When the social landscape no longer rewards sheer dominance, men are left to reconsider the foundation of their masculinity. The fear here is not just of losing, but of losing the game altogether, of not knowing the rules or the criteria for success. This confusion can lead to a sense of profound disorientation. In addition, men face the threat of internal contradiction, the clash between what society tells them they should be and the internal desires and feelings they are not allowed to express. This contradiction often manifests as resentment, anger, and a deep sense of unfulfillment. Many men feel as though they are expected to be successful in external ways, acquiring wealth, power, and status, while simultaneously being asked to embrace qualities that undermine the traditional markers of success, such as emotional openness and vulnerability. This dichotomy leaves men in a precarious position. If they embrace vulnerability, they risk being seen as weak. If they continue to prioritize strength and stoicism, they risk being seen as emotionally distant and disconnected. Perhaps the greatest threat to the masculine identity is the fear of failure, not just failure in external terms, but the failure to meet one's internal expectations of what it means to be a man. The traditional masculine identity has been built on an imperative to succeed, to achieve, and to lead. But as the world changes, the conditions for success also change. Men are increasingly asked to navigate a world where the old markers of success are no longer sufficient. In this new landscape, success is no longer a fixed concept. It is constantly evolving, challenging men to redefine themselves in ways that go beyond the traditional masculine ideals of power, achievement, and independence. The fear of failure, of not measuring up to these evolving standards, becomes all the more acute. In this way, the threat to the masculine identity is not just external, it is internal as well. It is a threat that forces men to confront their deepest fears: the fear of inadequacy, of obsolescence, and of not being enough. In the realm of personal and professional life, individuals often grapple with the tension between two core elements: competence and authority. These two forces, while related, are distinct and can often come into direct conflict, especially in environments where leadership, power, and influence are at stake. Competence refers to the ability to perform a task or role with skill and expertise, whereas authority is the power or right to give orders, make decisions, and enforce obedience. Both qualities are essential in leadership, but they do not always align in a way that benefits the individual or the organization. The struggle between competence and authority is one that has existed for centuries and continues to define the dynamics of leadership, governance, and social structures. Competence is often viewed as a purely functional quality. It is the ability to get things done, to know how to navigate complex situations, and to execute tasks with precision and efficiency. In the workplace, for example, an employee may be highly competent in their role, capable of producing excellent results and demonstrating a deep understanding of their field. Competence is typically rooted in technical knowledge, practical experience, and the application of skills. It can be measured objectively by performance outcomes, such as the ability to solve problems, complete tasks on time, and deliver high-quality work. However, authority is a more abstract and socially constructed quality. Authority is not necessarily tied to personal skill or expertise, but rather to the right to lead, influence, or control others. Authority is often granted through formal structures, such as hierarchical positions in an organization, titles, or social status. A person in a position of authority may not always possess the technical competence to perform the tasks they oversee, but can still wield power due to their position. Authority often comes with respect, deference, and the expectation that others will follow orders and directives, regardless of whether those orders are backed by personal expertise. The struggle between competence and authority becomes particularly evident when these two qualities are not aligned. In many organizations, competent individuals may find themselves passed over for leadership positions in favor of those with greater authority individuals who may possess a higher title or more influence, but who may lack the hands-on expertise necessary to succeed in a given task. Conversely, people who have authority but lack competence can often make decisions that are disconnected from reality, leading to ineffective leadership or poor outcomes. This disjunction between competence and authority creates a tension that can undermine trust, productivity, and morale within teams and organizations. One of the primary ways this tension manifests is through the perception that authority often trumps competence in organizational and societal structures. A person who holds a leadership title or position of power is often expected to have the ability to lead regardless of their actual skill or competence in the relevant area. This can create frustration among those who possess the competence but are not given the authority to lead or make decisions. For instance, a highly skilled engineer may work under a manager who has little understanding of the technical challenges they face, and the engineer may struggle with the disconnect between the manager's authoritative decisions and the practical realities on the ground. In such cases, competence becomes a limiting factor because it cannot always overcome the hierarchical barriers of authority. Conversely, the issue of overconfidence in authority also creates its own challenges. A leader who holds authority but lacks competence may make poor decisions that negatively impact an organization. This can occur when individuals in positions of power are more focused on asserting their authority than understanding the technical aspects of the decisions they make. This is particularly evident in situations where leaders make significant decisions without consulting the experts or those with on-the-ground experience. In such cases, authority is used to assert power, but without the competence to back it up, the results can be disastrous. Leaders may rely on their positional power and status to command respect and compliance, but without the necessary competence, their decisions can lead to inefficiency, poor outcomes, and a lack of respect from those they lead. The struggle between competence and authority is also shaped by psychological factors. Individuals who are highly competent may feel frustrated or even resentful when they are not recognized for their expertise or when they are passed over for positions of leadership in favor of those with greater authority. The sense of injustice can arise when individuals feel that their skills and experience should be sufficient to grant them the authority to lead. This feeling of frustration can undermine motivation, foster disengagement, and even result in resentment toward those in positions of authority. Similarly, individuals who hold authority may feel insecure or threatened when they are confronted with highly competent subordinates who possess more specialized knowledge. This insecurity can lead to an overcompensation of authority, where the leader becomes more controlling, micromanaging, or dismissive of the expertise of others. This tension also plays out in the context of decision-making. Competence often leads to a collaborative, informed approach to problem solving, where the perspectives and expertise of all team members are valued. In contrast, authority can often lead to a more top-down approach, where decisions are made unilaterally and imposed from above. Leaders who prioritize their authority over the input of competent subordinates may fail to recognize the value of their team's expertise, leading to poor decision-making and inefficiency. When authority is used to stifle open dialogue and creative thinking, the organization loses the advantage of diverse perspectives and specialized knowledge, which can undermine both innovation and performance. Moreover, the struggle between competence and authority can also shape the dynamics of leadership style. Competence is often associated with a servant leadership style, where the leader is humble, approachable, and focused on empowering their team members. This type of leader values the contributions of those with expertise and seeks to support them in their work. On the other hand, authority is often associated with a more authoritarian or command and control leadership style, where the leader places emphasis on their power to direct and control the actions of others. The tension between these two leadership styles often reflects the broader conflict between competence and authority, as leaders struggle to balance their role as decision makers with their responsibility to support and empower their teams. Ultimately, the struggle between competence and authority reflects a fundamental tension that exists in both organizational structures and societal hierarchies. Competence is an invaluable asset. It enables individuals to navigate complex challenges, solve problems, and innovate. Authority, however, is the mechanism by which decisions are made, and it is the force that enforces rules and establishes order. When these two forces are in harmony, organizations and societies can thrive. When they are out of alignment, however, it creates a fractured and dysfunctional system where decisions are not informed by expertise and those with the knowledge feel sidelined by those with power. Finding the balance between competence and authority is a challenge that requires both personal and organizational reflection, as well as a commitment to integrating the strengths of both qualities in leadership and decision-making processes. The human experience is marked by an inherent tension between the present self and the potential self, between what we are and what we could become. There is a pervasive call that echoes in the hearts and minds of individuals, urging them to transcend their limitations, to rise above the ordinary, and to realize a more profound version of themselves. This call is not merely a fleeting desire, it is a deep psychological drive that compels individuals to push beyond the boundaries of their current existence and seek something greater. This drive has been described in various ways throughout history, whether as the call to adventure, the journey towards self-actualization, or the pursuit of personal transformation. However it is framed, this call is foundational to the human condition, and it represents a dynamic force that shapes our decisions, our relationships, and our sense of purpose. At the heart of this call is the idea that there is something inherently unfinished about who we are in the present moment. Every individual at some point feels the pull to become more than what they currently are. This desire for growth, self-improvement, and transformation is an essential part of the human experience. It reflects a deep dissatisfaction with the status quo, an awareness that we are capable of becoming better, more complete versions of ourselves. This urge is not a superficial desire for material gain or external validation. Rather, it is a call to deepen one's sense of identity and to cultivate a fuller experience of life. This call manifests in different ways depending on the individual and their circumstances. For some, it may emerge as a yearning for personal success, the drive to achieve professional goals, attain financial independence, or gain recognition for their talents. For others, it may be a more internal pursuit, a desire to understand oneself more deeply, to confront inner demons, or to find a sense of spiritual or emotional fulfillment. Regardless of how it manifests, the underlying impulse remains the same: the desire to break free from the limitations imposed by circumstance, fear, or self-doubt. It is the desire to transcend one's current identity and step into a new and more expansive way of being. In many ways, this call is a form of psychological evolution, a push towards self-actualization. Psychologist Abraham Maslow identified self-actualization as the pinnacle of human development, representing the realization of one's full potential. It is the state in which a person is able to express their most authentic self, free from the constraints of societal expectations, fear of failure, or past trauma. The call to be more than what we are is, in essence, a call to realize our true potential, to move beyond the constraints of our current identity and embrace the possibility of becoming something greater. This journey towards self-actualization is not easy, however. It requires effort, discipline, and an openness to growth. It demands that we face our limitations head-on and confront the fears and insecurities that hold us back. At the same time, the call to be more than what we are also challenges the social constructs that define who we are. Society often imposes rigid roles and expectations on individuals, dictating how they should behave, what they should value, and what they should aspire to. These external pressures can create a sense of conformity that stifles individuality and personal growth. The call to be more than what we are, therefore, becomes a rebellion against these limitations. It encourages individuals to break free from the social roles they are assigned and to discover their own path, one that aligns with their authentic desires and values. This is not to suggest that social structures are inherently harmful. Rather, it is the over-reliance on these structures that can hinder personal development and prevent individuals from realizing their full potential. The path toward being more than what we are is often fraught with challenges. It requires courage to step into the unknown, to face fears and uncertainties that arise when we attempt to venture beyond the comfort of the familiar. The very act of growth is often accompanied by discomfort as we are forced to let go of old patterns, beliefs, and behaviors that no longer serve us. To answer the call to be more than what we are is to confront the shadow self, the parts of ourselves that we have repressed, denied, or failed to acknowledge. These shadow aspects can manifest as insecurities, fears, insecurities, or even self-destructive habits. Facing these shadows requires not only courage, but an openness to the possibility that we may not be the person we think we are or want to be. It demands an acceptance of our imperfections and a willingness to embrace the process of change, even when it feels difficult or uncertain. Moreover, answering the call to be more than what we are necessitates a shift in perspective. It requires a willingness to challenge our existing beliefs and values, and to question the assumptions we have made about who we are and what is possible. Often, the limits we perceive in ourselves are not inherent, they are self-imposed. These mental and emotional barriers are a result of past experiences, societal conditioning, or personal insecurities that prevent us from fully realizing our potential. In order to rise above these limitations, we must develop a new mindset, a mindset that embraces possibility, growth, and self-discovery. This shift in thinking is what allows individuals to embark on the journey of transformation and to transcend the constraints of their past selves. A critical element of the call to be more than what we are is the recognition of purpose. Individuals who feel the call to become more than what they are often do so in pursuit of a deeper sense of meaning in their lives. This meaning is not always tied to material success or external validation. It is often connected to a sense of contribution, the desire to make a difference, to leave a legacy, or to impact the lives of others in a meaningful way. The call to be more than what we are pushes us toward a vision of purposeful living, one in which our actions align with our values and desires and where we are fully engaged in the process of becoming the best versions of ourselves. In this sense, the call to be more than what you are is both personal and universal. It speaks to the individual's journey towards self-actualization and growth, but it also echoes a larger collective human experience. This urge to transcend limitations, to achieve a higher potential, is not unique to any one person or culture. It is a universal force that drives the evolution of the human spirit. Every individual in their own way must answer this call. Some will heed it with determination and perseverance, while others may struggle or resist its pull. However, the call remains constant, urging us to reach for the heights of what we can become, to realize the fullness of our potential, and to live lives of deeper meaning and fulfillment. In the end, answering this call is not about achieving perfection. It is about the ongoing journey of growth, discovery, and self-transformation. It is about embracing the process of becoming, rather than simply arriving at a destination. It is the willingness to be more than what we are, not because we are dissatisfied with ourselves, but because we recognize the immense possibility that lies within each of us. In conclusion, the call to be more than what we are is not merely a fleeting desire, but a profound intrinsic drive that pushes individuals toward growth, self-actualization, and deeper fulfillment. It challenges us to confront our limitations, transcend societal constraints, and step into a more expansive version of ourselves. Whether manifesting as a desire for personal success, a call to confront our inner shadows, or a pursuit of greater purpose, this urge is a fundamental aspect of the human experience. It demands courage, openness, and a shift in perspective as we move through discomfort and uncertainty toward transformation.